The letter doesn't look like a threat. Cream-colored envelope. Official seal, upper left corner. Your name in clean government font. The kind you open expecting a jury summons or a tax notice. You open it at your kitchen counter at 7:52 in the morning, still holding your coffee, still in the clothes you slept in. You read it once. Then again. The third read lands. The Preventive Risk Assessment Division has completed an algorithmic evaluation of behavioral, financial, and digital pattern data associated with your profile. Based on this evaluation, you have been assigned a priority risk classification of Level 2, indicating a statistically significant probability of engaging in criminal conduct within the next 18 months. You are required to report to the assessment office within 72 hours. Failure to comply may result in escalated classification. You set the letter down. You look at your coffee. You have never been arrested, never been charged, never done anything more legally ambiguous than a rolling stop at an empty intersection at 2 a.m. You are a person whose worst month involved searching the internet for information about debt restructuring while eating cereal for dinner because groceries had gotten expensive. You pick the letter up again. For reads. That's apparently what it takes for certain sentences to become real. The office is in a building you've driven past hundreds of times without registering. Beige, functional, distinguishable from its neighbors only by a small sign and the quality of its fluorescent lighting visible through the ground floor windows even on bright mornings. You arrive 17 minutes early because you are the kind of person who arrives early. That detail feels different today than it ever has before. The waiting room has 14 chairs. 7 occupied. Nobody makes eye contact. In that shared avoidance, there's a terrible solidarity. The unspoken recognition that you're all here for the same reason, and none of you know how to hold that in your body without showing it. A woman across from you, maybe 60, reads her phone with the focused attention of someone who needs to be looking at something that isn't the room. A man near the door, late 20s, holds himself very still in the way of someone who has decided stillness is the safest way to occupy a space where everything feels observed. You sit. You wait. You think about the phrase statistically significant probability. The assessor's name is on a placard on your desk. Simple. 2 syllables. Mid-30s, with the manner of someone who chose this work deliberately and has thought carefully about how to do it without becoming callous or hollow. She pulls up your file. Level 2, she says. Not a question. Yes, you say. Then, I don't understand how. She nods. The nod of someone who hears this many times a day. The system evaluates a composite profile. Financial stress markers, behavioral pattern shifts, social network changes, digital activity clusters. It doesn't identify a specific crime. It identifies a probability threshold. What threshold? Level 2 is above 62%, she says. You sit with that number. 62% probability that you will commit a crime. What does level 2 mean for me? Practically, she turns to the screen. Monitoring protocol. Enhanced data access. Mandatory check-ins every 30 days. Travel restrictions depending on destination. And a flag on your profile visible to employers running background assessments. That last one lands differently than the others. I haven't done anything, you say? I know, she says. Not performatively. Like a person stating a fact they find uncomfortable. The system doesn't respond to what you've done. It responds to what the patterns suggest.
The letter? What's
you want
wrong
to ask
with it?
what she thinks
Just
of that
come.
distinction. You decide not to. You call your sister from the parking lot. You tell her everything. The letter, the waiting room, the 62%, the employer flag. A pause. Then, very precisely, 62% based on what? That's the question. The letter didn't say. The assessor didn't say, citing the proprietary nature of the evaluation model. But you know your year. The gap between jobs. 3 months drawing down savings to a number that kept you awake. Your digital patterns shifting
Look,
during that
the
period.
information is right
More
there.
time online,
Oh, I see it now.
different
It
hours,
explains
different
everything.
content.
Right.
The
Thanks.
specific footprint of a person trying to outrun anxiety with information. 2 people you were close to going through things that changed the shape of your social network in ways visible to any system built to notice. None of that is a crime. All of it is data. And the data, assembled by a model you cannot see, evaluated by a process you cannot audit, produced a number now attached to your name in a government database, visible to future employers, constraining your movement, requiring you to report to a beige building once a month for an unspecified duration. Based on what? Your sister asks. Based on the shape of your year, you tell her. She's quiet. Then, so they punish you for having a hard year. The answer is more complicated than yes and more accurate than no. You don't have the language for it yet. You do by week 3. You spend that time trying to understand the system. Not to fight it yet. To understand it. Because understanding is how you move through things that frighten you. What you find is partial. The system is not fully public. A machine learning model trained on historical criminal conviction data, cross-referenced with behavioral and socioeconomic indicators, continuously updated with real-time data feeds from financial institutions, digital platforms, and municipal databases. Digital platforms. Your search history. Your purchase patterns. The content you engage with. The hours you're active. The aggregate shape of your presence in digital space. Read not by a person, but by a model extracting patterns from the texture of your behavior across hundreds of data points you generated without knowing they were being collected as evidence of anything. You searched, during the hard months, for things a person in financial stress searches for. Legal ways to reduce debt. How bankruptcy works. Whether certain things count as income. You searched because you were scared and researching felt like action. The system doesn't know you were scared. The system knows the searches. And somewhere in the geometry of those searches, your hours, your network shifts, your spending patterns, the model found a shape it recognized. A shape it assigned 62%. A shape that is, apparently you. The first check-in is 12 minutes. A different assessor. Standardized form. Professional tone without warmth or coldness. Current employment status. Changes in residence. International travel. Contact with individuals on a registered watch list. No. 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 He reviews the screen. Your score has adjusted. 61.4. What changed? Employment stabilization. Positive indicator. You walk out. Sit in your car. Do the arithmetic. 30 days of a flag on your name. Of filtering your searches with uncomfortable self-consciousness. Of being aware at every moment that the shape of your digital life is being read by something that has already decided you are probably going to do something wrong. And you move from 62 to 61.4. Less than 1%. You start the car. You find the forum at the end of week 5. Through a link from someone who knew someone classified level 3 8 months ago. 412 members. You read for 2 hours without stopping. A community that has built, through shared experience, an informal map of the system's logic. What it rewards. What it penalizes. What brings the score down. Stable employment. Regular schedule. Reduced financial volatility. Less engagement with content the model tags as conflict adjacent. More time in spaces with trackable positive social infrastructure. One member writes, you have to become boring to the model, not to people, to the model. They are different things. You can be complex and struggling and fully human and still learn to look boring to the thing reading your data. Another. The problem is that living in a way that looks boring to the model costs something real. Time, money, and the specific freedom of not having to think about how you appeared as something that cannot understand you. And then the pinned post. Top of the longest thread. The one you read 3 times, then a 4th, then sit within the specific silence of something reorganizing itself inside you. The model was trained on conviction data, not crime data. Conviction data. These are not the same thing. The model doesn't predict who commits crimes. It predicts who looks like people who got caught. This is the moment. Not the letter. Not the waiting room. Not the assessor saying I know in that quiet, uncomfortable way. This sentence. On a screen. Written by someone you'll never meet. Because what it means, followed all the way to its end, is that the model doesn't encode criminal behavior. It encodes the history of who faces consequences for behavior and who doesn't. Trained on convictions. Convictions from arrests. Arrests from policing. Policing that has never been, in any city you can name, uniformly distributed across all neighborhoods, all incomes, all faces. The model learned from history. And history is not neutral. History reflects which behaviors were surveilled and which were not, which communities were policed heavily and which made the same choices with different outcomes. 100 years of decisions made by people not thinking about what a model would inherit from the pattern they were creating. The model inherited all of it, and calls that inheritance objectivity. Calls it 62%. Calls it you. What would you do, sitting with that in your hands, at midnight, with a check-in on Tuesday and a score that moves in increments of 0.6? You request a formal review. Section
Hello?
7,
Is anyone there?
Paragraph
Voice
3
not
of the
recognized.
procedural
State your
guidelines.
purpose.
I'm
Any
human.
classified
Please let me in.
individual may request a review by a qualified human evaluator within the first 90 days. You're on day 61. You write carefully, not emotionally. You cite specific concerns, the model's training data, the distinction between conviction patterns and behavioral risk, the impossibility of meaningful contestation when the basis of the assessment cannot be examined by the person it affects. You send it. Automated confirmation, 30 to 60 business days. You keep going to the check-ins. Day 70, 60.8. Day 83, 60.1. Day 90, 59.3. The flag stays. The score falls the way certain things fall, slowly, in amounts too small to feel like progress on any individual day, but visible when you measure the distance between where you started and where you are. On day 104, you receive a second letter. Same envelope, same seal, same font. You open it at the same counter in the same kitchen, except it's evening. There's water instead of coffee, and your hands are steadier than they were the first time. Your classification has been downgraded to level 1. Quarterly check-ins instead of monthly. Travel restrictions lifted. Employer flag reclassified as informational rather than active alert. At the bottom, smaller text. The review board acknowledges your concerns regarding model training data and has referred them to the Methodology Oversight Committee for evaluation. Referred. You fold the letter. Place it next to the first one on the counter. You look at them side by side. Same envelope, same seal. The distance between them measured in 104 days of check-ins and careful searches, and a score that moved in increments too small to feel like anything until they added up to enough. You haven't won anything, not in the way winning usually feels. The system is still running, still generating numbers for 412 people in a forum and thousands more who haven't found it yet. Still trained on conviction data. Still producing 62% probability statements about people who searched the wrong things during a hard year. The Methodology Oversight Committee will evaluate. You'll believe that when you see what they decide. Until then, quarterly. Informational. A score below 62, though no one has told you the exact number, because the number, like the model, is proprietary. You put both letters in a folder. Label it clearly. Put it somewhere you won't lose it. Because you understand now, better than you did on the morning of the first letter, something the system never accounted for when it read the shape of your year and decided what it meant. You are also a pattern, and patterns, given enough time, learn to read back.